So let's start today's session. Dear and respected friend, a very warm welcome to everyone to this beautiful evening. We have gathered here to discuss electoral democracy, an inquiry into the fairness and integrity of elections in India. Today we have this 11th GSDS dialogue, and this is the last GSDS weekly dialogue of this year. It's my pleasure to extend a cheerful welcome to respected chair of today's session, Anjali Bhardwaj, nurturer of Satark Nagrik Sangathan, co-convener of National Campaign for People's Right to Information. I welcome Honorable Speaker, an inspiring soul, Shri Devasahayam, Chairman of People's First Constitutional Conduct Group, Coordinator of Citizens Commission on Election, and editor of many books, including some important work of Jayaprakash Narayan. It is a great pleasure for all of us that we have joined by many important personalities, Professor Jagdeep Chhokar Sahab, who is nurturer of Association for Democratic Rights and we are also joined by Professor Anand Kumar, our mentor of GSDS Forum, Professor Gyan, Dr. Fatima, and all friends co-present here. Let me give a brief introduction to our GSDS Forum. GSDS Forum stands for Gandhian School of Democracy and Socialism, which is a platform to promote understanding of dynamics of society with quest of freedom, justice, equality, and fraternity. It focuses on knowledge and dialogue, which empowers citizens, which empowers people. We invite people from different fields of life to share with us their lives, visions, and sadhana for strengthening democracy. So today we are joined by very deep sadhak who continuously work for empowering democracy, Devasahayam, who endorsed the praxis of Jayaprakash Narayan and is one of the stalwarts of advocate of electoral democracy. And we live in a very testing time of democracy and our institutions. We often see a serious breach on part of neutrality of the top authority responsible for free and fair elections, and maintaining the purity of electoral process has become the most important task and most challenging task for all of us in the context of neoliberalism, crony capitalism, and vegetarian democracy. So first, I would like to invite Anjali Bhardwaj to give a brief introduction of the theme of the topic. And then after, we will invite Honorable Speaker of today's session. So, Anjali Bhardwaj, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me here today and for organizing this very, very important discussion. All of us know of India, and we say that India is one of the largest, most vibrant democracies. And we take pride in the fact that the election process in India is considered to be very robust. It is true that we are a multi-party system. Elections are pretty much held on time. There are institutions which are supposed to function independently, like the Election Commission of India, which are supposed to monitor elections and the electoral process, make sure that elections are free and fair. But the reality is that despite the Prime Minister saying in a recent democracy summit that countries and democracies across the world should emulate Indian electoral process and the way elections are held in India, there are increasingly a large number of questions that are being raised about the way elections are being conducted and about the entire electoral process. The reality is also that there has been for a long time and increasingly now a crying need for reforms in the electoral process. There are certain areas in which there is a very, very clear need for reforms. We have problems in the inclusiveness of electoral rolls. There is the big issue of criminalization, increasing criminalization in politics, the kind of money power that we are witnessing, and it has been growing, the influence of money power in elections, the manner in which and the time in which scheduling of elections is done, the compliance with the model code of conduct. All of these are issues which have been concerning citizens for a long time and increasingly causing more and more discomfort. It is extremely worrying, the kind of money power that we are seeing, the influence of money power that we are seeing in our election and our electoral process. Unfortunately, it has gained some sort of social acceptability, this lotus blooming. Chunav hote hain, and there are, after elections, there are results declared. And after that, very, very conveniently, there are legislators who are bought over by, let's say, the Bharatiya Janata Party, the ruling party, which is getting a tremendous amount of money and resources. And then we hear of the lotus blooming. And one question that is increasingly being asked by people is that what is the point of holding elections? What is the point of spending these kind of public resources if finally we are going to have this kind of money power playing itself out? Already we know that because of the Income Tax Act, there was a great deal of secrecy and opaqueness that was possible in the funding of elections in the country. So we know that political parties, if they got any amount which was less than 20,000 rupees, they could say that we are not going to say what is the source of our income. And that used to lead to a great deal of problem because a lot of money would come in cash, and even something like 100 crores could be broken down through creative accounting into less than 20,000 rupee packets, 19,990 rupees, for example, and shown in the name of many, many people. And this was an open secret. And as a result, a citizen had no idea who was funding elections and who was funding which political party. We all know that political parties, when they're funded, nobody is doing it out of public interest. When funding is happening, and especially at that scale, by corporates, by industry, it's usually because they want the party in power to work for them if they come to power. So there is the whole issue of quid pro quo. There was a great deal of need, therefore, for greater transparency. Unfortunately, what we have seen is that in the name of bringing greater transparency, the current government introduced electoral bonds. Essentially, these bonds are a set that it's an instrument by which citizens can buy these electoral bonds, or companies can buy these electoral bonds, corporates can buy these electoral bonds, both belonging to India and those who are outside India can buy these bonds. And nobody needs to know, and nobody has a way to know who is buying the bonds and who they are giving the money to, the electoral bonds to. So they're basically, what electoral bonds are doing today is opening the floodgates of anonymous political funding. And what it essentially translates into is an uninformed citizenry. We have now seen legitimization of anonymous political party funding and funding of elections. Now, in a situation like this, when the matter is taken to the Supreme Court, one hopes that institutions that are responsible for ensuring that democracy and that elections are free and fair do act on the behalf of people and citizens who are supposed to be supreme in a democracy. But unfortunately, we've seen that in the Supreme Court, this matter of electoral bonds has been languishing. The Election Commission of India, which I know that Mr. Devasahayam is going to talk about in some detail, the Election Commission of India, which is supposed to ensure and has the responsibility cast upon it under the Constitution of holding free and fair elections, earlier said that electoral bonds are a huge problem. They should not come into being, but in the Supreme Court eventually changed its tune. And we are seeing that the role of the Election Commission, which is so important to make sure that there is a level playing field, to make sure that elections actually happen the way in which and reflect what people want, that commission, that institution is unfortunately not playing the role that it is supposed to. We have seen even in the last general elections, the kind of violations, and subsequently in state elections, the kind of violations of the model code of conduct that have been taking place. We had Namo TV that suddenly appeared, for example, before the last general elections, the kind of propaganda that is being allowed. And when people complained to the Election Commission, unfortunately, the commission did not act in the manner in which it is supposed to and it should have under the Constitution. In fact, later on, it became very clear that even when clean chits were given to the Prime Minister, to the Home Minister and the ruling party by the Election Commission, the dissenting note which came from within the commission, the person who was giving the dissenting notes, the commissioner, was in fact, adversely acted against. So we are seeing that the compromise of this institution is so evident. And at the moment, it's very important that there is a case going on in the Supreme Court to also look at the manner in which appointments are being made to the Election Commission of India. It is very important that the Election Commission be independent, it be autonomous, it should not be a caged parrot of the party in power. And the first way of ensuring independence and autonomy of an institution and making sure that it is not under the ruling party is to make sure that appointments are made not by a selection committee which has a preponderance of the government. Unfortunately, the manner in which selections are being made of the Election Commission, it's completely under the control of the government, and therefore there is a huge issue of public trust today in the Election Commission of India. There are many, many topical issues which Mr. Devasahayam will touch upon, including there is now the move to say that there will be voting, remote voting. There are different other kinds of things that are coming up, which could concern citizens, and where if the Election Commission of India does not play an independent and proper role, it could further compromise the kind of electoral results that we see in the end. So we are currently, the most topical issue that all of us are hearing about is this remote voting by migrant workers. Now, in principle, something like that might be good, but finally, there has to be the institution in which there is public trust, which ensures that there is no double voting, that all of this happens in a tamper-free, proper manner. The EVM issue, the VVPAT issue is extremely important, which again, Mr. Devasahayam will be talking to us about, and the role of the Election Commission in making sure that elections are free and fair has to be ensured. And I think it's very important that all of us engage in this process, because democracy and elections are only as vibrant and as fair as citizens taking interest in the process. So thank you so much for organizing this. And I hope that Mr. Devasahayam will be covering many of these burning issues as far as electoral reforms are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anjali ji. And your deliberation is a kind of invitation for all of us to realize this, the notion is in serious crisis, and democracy is at risk of those who want power at any cost. Unfortunately, our institutions have let us down, but that is why we should inculcate the idea of electoral democracy. So without further ado, may I invite MG Devasahayam ji to share his thought on the very topic. Ji, namaskar. Yes.
Your voice is breaking. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, but I think your network
Hello?
is not up to the mark. So you can
Am I audible?
mute your...
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Now you are audible.
Okay, I'll switch off my video. Okay, right. So I'll keep the video off. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity, the ITM University and the GSDS. A very topical subject, and India is almost always in the midst of elections. So the subject today is the caption, the title of the book that we had published in January of this year, which is called Electoral Democracy, an inquiry into the fairness and integrity of elections in India. Let me first of all distinguish the kind of democracies that we have in the world. What kind of democracy India has, so we know the background in which the subject is to be dealt with. Broadly, there are two kinds of democracies. One is direct democracy, the other is representative democracy. And some countries have a combination of both. The direct democracy, as you know, is unique. It follows the principle of social contract theory of Hobbes and Rousseau, where the consent of the governed, majority of the concerned governed, is a must for a ruling dispensation to be legitimate. So based on that, it talks about a referendum where all major issues will be decided by majority of the people, the citizens who are eligible to vote, the referendum. Second part of direct democracy is right to recall. Now this 5-year tenure, sometimes you make mistakes, very wrong people get elected, and the electorate realizes it. Since electorate is ultimate sovereign, they have the right to recall after following a certain procedure. Third is Citizens' Bill, law. Now, at the end of the day, laws are for what? Laws are for whom? It's for the people. So a group of citizens, again, based on rules and regulations, if they decide a certain law has to be brought in, they can draft a law. And the legislature or the parliament is bound to enact the law. So these are three major aspects of direct democracy. India is not zero. India is not a not a direct democracy. It doesn't have any of these three features. Second is representative democracy. So we have representative democracy, we vote, and the winning candidate comes in, he represents the people. It's an indirect democracy. They go to the legislature, they go to the parliament, enact laws. So there again, we are not really representative democracy because, again, because of the first past post system, even candidates securing 20% of the votes, 25% of the votes get elected. They become MLAs and MPs. They become the rulers, ministers and chief ministers and prime ministers. And we don't have a proportional representation. So this representative system does not comply with the norms of the social contract theory, which I mentioned, Hobbes and Rousseau and others. Now, the question is, we have electoral democracy. We have electoral democracy, and we will be talking about that. And in electoral democracy, as in all democracies, basically, it's synonymous with elections. Elections become synonymous with democracy. You can't talk about democracy without elections. Only through the medium of elections, the people who are the ultimate sovereign, they express their desire, they transfer their sovereignty, and the legislators and the parliamentarians who draw their power from the people exercise power on behalf of the people for 5 years. That is the concept of representative democracy. And so in form, we have our constitution provides for parliament, our constitution provides for legislature, and now of late we have the third tier also of the Panchayat Raj and urban and local bodies in form. Secondly, also in form, we have an institution, constitutionally mandated Election Commission of India with lot of powers, plenipotentiary powers, mandatory statutory powers. And we have a system of elections wherein the entire administrative structure goes under the control of the Election Commission. Even in normal time, Election Commission has got presence throughout the country, length and breadth of the country. May not be direct. So it has got a nucleus in Delhi, and it has got other nucleuses in state capitals in the form of chief electoral officers and their office. It has a presence in every district. The district magistrate, the district collector, the deputy commissioner, the way you call him, he is a district election officer, continuously performing tasks related to the elections, like electoral roll, various other things. So there is a very well structured, sort of more or less the same as our India's well-known administrative machinery. It is also is available. And the day election is declared, notified, the entire administrative structure goes under the control of the Election Commission of India, who assumes disciplinary powers also. They can suspend, they can transfer, they can order all kind of things, and they can recruit anybody, they can also anybody to perform any task, send them as observers, returning officers, and whatever you have. So we have a very good form and structure. And because of this structure, administratively, Indian elections are very well regarded throughout the world. On the appointed date, notification is issued, then the process starts, then the nomination takes place, then the nominations are scrutinized, withdrawal takes place, campaign takes place, voting takes place, people go and stand in front of the booth in queue, and with discipline they vote. At 5 o'clock, the voting completes. Then a couple of days after waiting, there's a mandatory provision, very unique in India. Counting will not take place 3 days after the completion, because 1 day is given to assess the situation, whether there has been any malpractice in any of the booths. So it will take time for the election commission to order a repoll. Repoll in booths, repoll in constituencies, that will happen the next day. So only on the third day counting takes place. So all these have been in place for the last 70 years or so, ever since we had our constitution. We had Article 324 of the constitution setting up the election commission. We have the Representation of People's Act 1950, Representation of People's 1951. All these are fine. And as rightly, proudly that we say that India has retained the form of democracy in spite of several challenges. Now we find our Prime Minister keep on saying India is mother of all democracies. And even the G2 logo, G2, this thing also, G20 conference also is mother of democracy. It's all fine. And recently, when the matter of election commission went before the Supreme Court, there was a very eulogistical kind of reference to election commission. All these are because of past glory, because of the form. Now, in that form, in that kind of illusion, we have forgotten to look at the substance. We have forgotten. In the last 70 years, there has not been a single exercise in look at the substance of India's elections, which is the backbone of the democracy. What is the substance? I am not going into the other elements of democracy and elections, the political parties. That itself is a very subject. Professor Jagdeep Chhokar is here. He is an expert on the subject. I am not going to go into that. We don't have a political party system at all. The most undemocratic system. In fact, Mr. Gautam was talking to me the other day about Jayaprakash Narayan's concept of partyless democracy. I said, it's not Jayaprakash Narayan's concept. It is what the Constitution says. India is a partyless democracy. It's not a party democracy. But unfortunately, due to default, political parties have come into the picture and they have captured the whole game without any rules and regulations. They are running the show. I am not going to that at all. I am giving a fair chance to the political parties. We are only talking about the substance of India's elections. That is where the title came, an inquiry into the fairness and integrity of elections in India. So for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been fairly agitated, closely watching the situation, finding out the electoral system in India is going from bad to worse, and we are naam ke vaste democracy, and it is an elected autocracy. As you know, in the last several years, international bodies like Freedom Foundation, like the other kind of organizations, they have captioned India as electoral autocracy. Now, this is a great shame. People have started talking about India as an autocracy, but electoral autocracy, because the election system is highly skewed. So that's what we looked into it. We went for a Citizens Commission on Election. We identified 7 subjects. That's what I'll be subjecting briefly. Then I'll open myself to questions for people, because talking to an academic gathering is always a pleasure, because unless the academic this thing takes up this issue in a big way, Indian democracy is doomed. Indian democracy is doomed. The very fact that there is fear in several circles, including academic circles, means that we are not a democracy. I have personally experienced it. I am very frank. In the last few years, it never happened before. We have conducted election during our time. In fact, I was a returning officer of the election immediately after the emergency, 1977. We threw out the Congress lock, stock and barrel. 2/3 majority thrown out. Prime Minister defeated. His favorite son was defeated, thrown out, because the election was free and fair. There was no fear. There was no fear. During the emergency, there was fear. The moment election was announced, and within a few weeks, fear vanished. Professor Anand Kumar, I think, who is associated with JP movement, would know it. But no, now there is fear. Everywhere there is fear. Academic circles, there is fear. Everywhere they're afraid. What kind of democracy are you talking about? If there is governance by fear, I have written articles on that. So fear must go. If we have fear, then we have no democracy. Forget talking about democracy. We are in an autocratic country. So I thought that the message that we are carrying today, we're talking about today, will carry forward. So I will now subject briefly dealt with the 7 areas that we covered. Area number 1, what kind of sanctity, the electoral rolls. Electoral rolls is where the election starts. The voter list. What is the level of integrity? Number 1. Number 2, the voting system. Machine voting, machine counting. Who is voting and who is counting? Is the voter voting? Is the voter counting? Second question. Third question is that the money power, which Anjali mentioned about. Money power. Absolutely destroyed the level playing field. Fourth is criminal power. Criminal elements have come in and have taken over 30%, 40%, because Association for Democratic Reforms quite frequently comes out with reports stating the kind of criminal records legislators have, parliamentarians have got, and they are the legislators. They govern the country. So that is the fourth one. Fifth one was the media power. Now the media has become a kind of leviathan, kind of monster. All kind of media, print media, electronic media, digital media, social media, this media, that media. Manipulation, propaganda, the media power. Fifth is the model code of conduct. It was a mutually agreed model code of conduct between the Election Commission and the political parties. They are supposed to be enforced. There are several codes of conduct, but they are hardly enforced. And finally, at the 7th, role and functioning of the Election Commission before, during, and after elections. So in all these 4, in substance, I am very, very regrettably say that India's election system is failing. It has failed. But media will never write it. Media is so scared. They will not write the truth at all. They will write all kind of nonsense. But the reality is that in all these 7 parameters, India's electoral system today is a failure. I will tell you why. First, come to the electoral rolls. Highly exclusive, not of non-inclusion is taking place. And now they have introduced technology through which you can easily remove voters list and easily bring in new list, manipulate the electoral roll. Now there is a rule 18, wherein any name can be removed without even giving a notice, without informing. Somebody is there in the electoral roll last month, next month his name will not be there. Somebody might have made a frivolous complaint or something, and his name is removed. So electoral roll is today lacks integrity. I live in Bangalore, Karnataka. Recently, there's a major scandal, massive scandal. The data was stolen. It was given to a private party, heavily bribed by ruling party ministers and ruling party people, and this they were given identity cards of block level officers, and they went and collected information, and there are reports of lakhs and lakhs of names being deleted and lakhs of names being included. But the tragedy is the response of Election Commission was horrendous. The scam was revealed by actually digital. This called the News Minute. They only came out with the scam. Election Commission didn't do anything. Nothing they did. When they came, there was big fisticuff between the BJP and Congress party. Congress is upon BJP. They are talking as if electoral roll is the responsibility of the political parties. Chief Minister and the opposition leader were trading abuse. You're shouting. And finally, Chief Minister ordered inquiry. Chief Minister ordered all kind of inquiries. He asked the election authority to inquire and this and that. There is so much of commotion. In fact, I had to raise a question and tell the people who the hell is the Chief Minister. It forced the local Chief Electoral Officer to issue a statement. A courageous boy, I must say, though I haven't met him. He said it's not the job of the Chief Minister, he is nobody. It's an election commission which is responsible for the electoral rolls. And even after that, they have hardly done anything. All they have done is to appoint three young IAS officers for just 3 constituencies in Bangalore. And some revision is going on. Even now, there is a lot of unrest. The local civil societies extremely, they have demanded social audit of the electoral roll. And we have made a request to the Election Commission. I wrote to the Election Commission. Election Commission has not even bothered to respond. The Election Commission and this present Election Commission responds only to Prime Minister Modi and his office. They don't respond to anybody else. Anybody else. Anyway, I'll come to that later. So, the electoral roll, by and large, serious doubts have been expressed on the integrity of electoral. Second, machine voting, EVM voting and counting. Now, I don't want to go into great details. There's a lot of commotion going on. And very simply, I will put, elections are a democracy. Democratic principles, there are certain democracy principles which any electoral process must satisfy. In an election, you are transferring sovereignty, which is not a trade union election. It is not a, what do you call that, student body election. It's a transfer of sovereignty. 5 years, you have given away your sovereignty. And the sovereign who is a citizen must know whom she or he has voted, whether it has been registered against that name, whether it is correctly counted. He must have the knowledge. They must have the knowledge. The machine may be one of the best in the world. I don't care. I am not an engineer. I don't know about the machines. But it does not confirm even the basic rudimentary democracy principles. Number one, the vote is cast as intended. The voter wanted to cast his vote or her vote to somebody, and was it cast as intended? He should know. She should know. Second is, was it recorded as cast? Was it recorded? Did she see it with her own eyes? Was it recorded? No. Oh, counted as recorded. Was it done so? In the paper ballot, all the 3 are satisfied. You see your candidate's name, your symbol, and then put the stamp. 3-4 times you see it before putting it in the box. Now everything is done in a machine. It may be the best machine in the world, but it's of no use. This matter went to the German Supreme Court, Federal Court they call it. Most advanced technology, advanced nation in the world. They just, when they are talking about technology, like Election Commission is talking about technology. You must be reading. They are going to a big conference towards the 3rd week of January on technology. So technology has got its role. Technology is all for protection. Technology is not for democracy, man. Democracy is for the people. So these fellows talking about technology, and at the end of the day, machine is doing everything. Voting is done by the machine. Counting is done by the machine. So it is now, as I've written an article a couple of days ago, will of the people has been replaced by the whim of the machine. So, is it free and fair? No. Machine can do anything. Anyone with some basic, there are IIT people here as part of this meeting, they know machine can always be manipulated and do any kind of mischief. So second is machine voting, highly No other decent democracy has machine voting. Entire Europe went back to paper ballot. America also 80% went back to paper ballot. And only some, what do you call that, small time democracies who call themselves democracies, they are carrying this. Even Pakistan rejected. Pakistan, they said no, we don't want elect EVMs. So second. Third issue is, which Anjali has in detail dealt with, the money power. The money power. I mean, what kind of level playing field? Since he has already dealt with the matter, I don't want to go into it. But the problem is that even otherwise, there is huge, massive black money which is playing a role. Now it is the electoral bond and massive plan is going on. There was a report in 2019 election. A total of 60,000 crores were spent. 60,000 crores, but 58 or 60,000 crores. Out of that, more than 50%, about 32, 34, 5,000 crores was spent by the ruling party. So they won 303. In fact, I written an article, 2 articles, and nobody rebutted it in prominent journals. And in 303 seats they won. Average workout came to 100 crores per constituency, period. Average expenditure came to 100 crores per parliament constituency. Now, you are talking about India is a great democracy, mother of all democracies. Now come to the criminal. From money power, automatically things go to the criminal. Criminals are purchased with money. Where there is money, you can buy criminals. And everyone knows about it, the criminal record of people, murder, rape, cheating, fraud, most of the fellows, and they immediately go and become member of the political party, because parties have no rules and regulations whatsoever, and they absorb them, and then they become the winnable candidates. Criminals become winnable candidates. I still remember Professor Jagdeep Chhokar making a presentation in 2014 in that famous film actor, what's his name, Satyameva Jayate program on election, criminalization of election. And he produced a chart saying that the more criminal you are, the higher the possibility of getting elected. He had a beautiful chart. So he is here in this today's gathering. So Satyameva Jayate 2014, I also participated. Qureshi participated. Professor Tarlochan Shastri participated. So that were the criminals. Then we come to media. Completely distorted media. Today, you don't feel like even opening the media. The kind of false information that is coming out, the kind of paid news that is coming out, the kind of propaganda that is coming out. And Anjali briefly mentioned about what happened in 2019. Even after that, media is completely upset. The other side is nobody even speaks about, whether it is digital media, print media, social media, and any other media, whatever. They have complete domination, no level playing field. I don't have to go into in great detail, in spite of the fact that there is a code. Election Commission, along with the press people, media, I think they got Media Guild or whatever, they had laid down a model code of media code, but media code is never adhered to or followed. Okay, then comes to model code of conduct. There's a model code of conduct where you have to conduct the campaign in a certain manner. You can't you can't violate that. If it is violated, Election Commission has got the power to take action, but nothing. Ruling party can do anything. Anjali mentioned about Namo, I don't know, TV. Yeah. Namo TV some time ago. The recent Gujarat elections, I'll tell you 2 instances. One was the Home Minister Amit Shah said, 2002, we taught a lesson to these fellows, broke their backbone. And after that, they have not raised their voice. Meaning, indicatedly, clearly saying that we will do it again. Everyone knows about 2002. It was hushed up through various agencies. I will not go into that. Real fact I know because I have been following it from day one. The first person to go and do a report on that is a gentle soul, one of our colleagues, Harsh Mandev. And the first report I read, since then I have become his admirer. Courageous, he resigned from the IAS in 2002. So since then I have been following it, we know what happened. But Mr. E.A. Sharma wrote to the Election Commission, Mr. Jagdeep Chhokar wrote to the Election Commission, I wrote to the Election Commission saying that this is a plain communal way of doing campaigning, take action. The Election Commission did not even recognize. And after election, everything is over, they said, no, he did not make any new threat. And they just hushed it up. Then there is a second case, a very clear case of violation of leading a big procession, violating. So media model code of conduct can be violated. Election Commission is party to that. So hardly any enforcement. And they go and tell a lie before the Supreme Court. They have no powers. Actually, the symbols, they may not have any powers under the model code of conduct because it's not a rule. Whereas they have powers under the election symbols rules, symbols order, 16A. Any direction, any instructions, any this thing direct by the Election Commission, if it is violated, they can issue a notice after giving you a fair chance. The symbol of the party can be frozen. That is the biggest punishment that a party can have. The Election Commission has got the powers even now. They have never exercised the power. Okay. And finally, the performance of the Election Commission. I have been interacting with the Election Commission for a fairly long time. I had never come across such sort of negative Election Commission. And this started mostly from 2018 onwards. Since 2018, Election Commission to me is functus officio, non-functional. They are completely partisan, and every decision they take, they don't respond, zero response to the civil society, to the voters, to the electorate, to the opposition party. Even a group like Constitutional Conduct Group, comprised of IAS officers, all of who have conducted election during their time. We have been writing letters, 7, 8 letters, not even a response. All these election commissioners are much junior to us, way junior to our juniors, but they will not even respond, meaning thereby they zero response to the civil society. They only pander to the ruling party. Now, recently, 3-4 decisions that they have taken, it's disgusting. Anjali talked about them supporting the electoral bond. Linking of Aadhaar with electoral roll, actively supporting. I am told they are terrorizing some people, telling them to do it, otherwise will remove from the voters list. Aadhaar is the most porous of all documents. Aadhaar is a document of a private agency controlled by the government to die. And now that will overrule the voters list prepared by the Election Commission itself, house to house, after house to house, overtake. The Election Commission has completely given up their role. And now, yesterday's news, this remote voting, absolute fraud. See, even the EVM booth, EVMs are booth based. The only argument in favor of EVM is that it is standalone. It is not linked to the internet. So it cannot be tampered with. That's the only argument, which is also not true. Any computer engineer will immediately say it's nonsense. Anyway, as it is confined to a single booth. When that they are unable to solve that problem, so they want to have multi-constituency, 72 constituencies, EVM, remote, through internet. Can there be a bigger nonsense than that? What fraud are they planning? Are they deliberately planning fraud? So point I am trying to make is, all this what I am saying is based on research. We made study. Citizens Commission is sat on that. Depositions from topmost experts in the world. Based on that, the conclusion is, in form, we have an electoral system, as I told you. But in substance, our electoral system has failed. If the electoral system fails, democracy also fails. And if democracy fails, there's no future for this country. I am 80. Our days are numbered. It is for the youth. It's for the students of today. Every college student is a voter. If this course continues, democracy is doomed, and we'll be only having this kind of form, but there will be no substance. With this, I would like to conclude. Thank for the opportunity. I have a little bad throat. So any questions I am willing to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MG Devasahayam. It was very inspiring and informative session. And your talk is a kind of invitation for all of us to co-realize the essence of democracy and also think about the possibility of the existential crisis. And of course, we have so many commissions, we have so many recommendations, but also we need people's movement, people's engagement. So thank you so much for sharing your information. And I can see chat box is full of so many comments and the questions. So I will read some of the questions. Meanwhile, we can I can invite friends who would like to share some of his or her thought. Please raise his or her hand or indicate me in the chat box. Yes, Bir Saha has raised. Please unmute yourself and please ask your question in briefly. Yes.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, let me compliment you for the insightful and very experience-rich, thought-provoking lecture. I have a question, sir. Like, I feel, what is there like leadership crisis within the electoral system, especially in the context of like there has been discussions on like we need like election commissioners like TN Sessions and like that. So how do you look at the leadership crisis in the Election Commission of India? Thank you, sir.
I request Devasahayam ji, please note down these questions so that we can save some time.
Do you want to answer
Okay,
question
please.
wise or wait for others also to?
Yes.
Anyway, shall I respond to this question?
Yes, please.
You know, there is a very correct question. There's a very grave leadership crisis. Not only the Election Commission, throughout the country. Let me tell you, I am a very blunt person. A lot of people dislike me for that. I don't consider a single person today in this country as leader. Because I belong to a different era. Though, of course, I have not, Mahatma Gandhi died when he was hardly less than 8, 9 years old. But I have moved with people like Jayaprakash Narayan, Mother Teresa. There are other people. The leadership India had. Today, Indian leadership is near zero. So when you have leadership crisis all over this thing, there will be leadership crisis in the Election Commission also. The Session is being talked about. Session was a single commissioner. That's why he could take a decision. And he had a certain advantage, because at that time there was a law, booth capturing, you can sort of countermand elections, and he countermanded election. That's where he became famous. Subsequently also there has been good election commissioners. I can mention some of them, but I don't want to mention names. But in the last few years, even earlier also during the Congress, also there were bad people. Today they feel that, I think ideologically, election commissioners have come into the grip of certain ideology. And they are loyal to that ideology. They are not loyal to democracy. They are not loyal to the people. That's why they don't respond at all. We keep knocking the head, and then they even go to the extent of committing perjury in the Supreme Court. In my petition I filed in 2018, Election Commission filed a false affidavit in the Supreme Court. Can you believe it? And Gogoi was there as the Chief Justice. He just dismissed our petition based on the false affidavit, though we told them that it's a false affidavit. So standard, there is no leadership. There's a massive leadership crisis. I totally agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you. There are two hands. Satish Chaudhary ji, please ask your question briefly.
Yeah, I have two questions. One is about this electoral bonds. I hear people only questioning the secrecy of funding, but how about stopping all corporations from making contributions anyway, because they have so much money? So in fact, in some countries, there are limits to the contribution, like low limits, like $100 or something in Canada. And so similarly, we could have something like 100 rupees or perhaps even 1,000 at the most per person and per these corporations. The second question is, I don't know how much the Election Commission spends. What is their total budget for holding elections? And on the whole, average over five years, can people, Devasahayaji mentioned that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I request Devasahayam ji, please note down these questions and please answer all these questions at the end of the session. Yes, Meera Chakraborty, madam. Yes. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, thank you, Randhir. I would like to ask Mr. Devasahayam, when he was trying to categorize as to what he came to the term substance. I think substance or substance is the people, and in democracy, in at least in Indian democracy, people are totally eliminated. When at the root, I would like to tag it as corporate democracy. If it is a corporate democracy, then people are certainly absent. How can you expect the media, as you said, to behave? Media doesn't behave because media is owned by the corporate bodies. And therefore, if, as Anjali was saying, that the money is a terrible issue, and if that is taken into account, because when we, as a member of the Karnataka State Women's Commission, I went with my team to the interior part of Karnataka. The women were saying that yes, we are heavily paid, and yes, there is block vote. So then, when we call the meeting of the women of the panchayats, how am I supposed to tell them that yes, this is people's democracy, that this is people's panchayat, that this is because this the block development officer openly took a lot of money. And I think we have to attack the one, of course, the right to recall, we must emphasize again and again. And also that this is the corporate which is playing, which has hijacked democracy. And how do you then expect? How do you try to remove that? How do you bring in people? It's people's democracy, and they represent the Constitution says that we the people. Where are we the people? Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yep. Anyone else?
We invite Professor Jagdeep Chhokar also. He has also joined. Yes, he is in the meeting.
He has been there. He has been there from the beginning.
Yes, Professor Chhokar, would you like to share some of your thoughts? Maybe he is taking some time. So
Maybe, yeah.
we
Any
can
other question?
invite, sorry?
Any other question? Because we have to respond to 2 questions.
Meanwhile, you can respond to question.
Okay, there are just 2 questions we have just about on electoral bond details. I would ask Anjali to respond because she has done considerable study on that. As far as the election commission expenses are concerned, they are very minimal. Because I told you, the entire administrative structure is brought into play when elections are conducted. And the budget for election commission will be only maybe a few hundred crores in 4 or 5 years. It's a very minor expense as far as India is concerned. Electoral bond, I think Anjali will talk later. Then about the question of corporate democracy or people's democracy, this is the most critical question. In fact, I have written that when corporates and government meets, it becomes fascism. Fascism is a combination of government. The government and corporates come together, it becomes fascism. So it's no longer democracy. Fascist, Nazi cannot be democracy. But the question here is, this answer will be very, very, we have to go way back into the Constitution itself. See, I briefly mentioned that because it's a very important point. This was the basic flaw in the Constitution. Because when the Constitution was brought in 1950, India had a 3-tier system of democratic governance. We had the parliament, we had state legislature, we had Panchayat Raj also, particularly in states like Tamil Nadu and Karnataka and all, very robust Panchayat Raj was there. But unfortunately, what went into the hands of the constitution framers, I don't want to go into detail, but I have studied the matter, but I don't want to go into that. They left out the 3rd tier. The grassroots was left out of the constitution. They were neither given any role, nor power, no funds, nothing. So the constitution provided for only 2 tiers, parliament and state. And parliament, 80 to 85% of the powers went to the parliament and central government. 15 to 20% went to state government. So where are the people? People live in villages and towns, small towns. If they had the 3rd tier has been built in from the very beginning, it would have been a people's democracy. Maybe whatever flaws they may be. That was the mission Mahatma Gandhi was trying to take up. That was the mission Jayaprakash Narayan was going to take up. People's democracy. So eventually, as a gift from the government, Rajiv Gandhi to start with, then Narasimha Rao in 1992, we had the 73rd, 74th Amendment. That is only a grafting. You can't graft something. The graft gets rejected. It's like a liver plantation or a kidney plantation, transplant. So it's a fact that it is not people's democracy. And corporates have money, corporates have hijack. Most of the criminal and money elements are coming from the corporates. And I don't want to go use very harsh words because I still believe in democracy. Otherwise, calling India a democracy actually is kind of a cruel joke. Any other
Yes.
questions? I think.
Yes, thank you. Professor Jagdeep Chhokar has joined. So I request Professor Chhokar to kindly respond the question raised by some of our participants regarding electoral bond and yes.
I am afraid I am guilty. I missed some of the questions. If Randhir ji, you could summarize the questions, I might be able to respond.
Yes, the question regarding electoral bond and the funding of state funding issue related to free and fair elections.
Electoral bonds, I think, large most people know about that. It is a very, it's an absolutely opaque process which makes it possible for the ruling party to control or to corner all the electoral funds and choke the funding to all other opposition parties. This would be true regardless of which is the ruling party. That is perhaps what explains that, except for one political party which has filed a petition in the court, no other political party is seriously opposing electoral bonds. So electoral bonds are unconstitutional per se because they were introduced through a money bill, as the character of electoral bonds has nothing to do with the money bill. So they are ab initio unconstitutional. They should not be there at all. And they have completely opened the floodgates of all kinds of money, including money from foreign sources, to come into the electoral system and completely hijack the so-called democratic process in the country. So the more electoral bonds gain currency, the worse it gets for the democracy. This is about electoral bonds. Now on state funding of elections, I have a slightly different view, which some people are not comfortable with. First of all, I believe that the expression state funding is a misnomer. Where does state get the money from? State doesn't have any money of its own. State gets its money from the people through taxes and so on. So this activity should not be called state funding. It is misleading. It should be called public funding. And the reason I have been saying so for the last few years is, and now some people have come to acknowledge or accept this, that in our country, unfortunately, we have a system or a culture that anything which is from the government, it is free. जो चीज सरकारी है वो चीज हमारी है. बिजली is free, पानी is free, whatever, education is free, everything is free. And if the government pays the bill, we as people don't realize that it is indirectly, we are the people who are paying the bill. So if we say a state funding of elections, everybody says, हाँ, मेरी जेब से क्या जाता है? But if we call it public funding of elections, my hope is that people will understand that it is their money which is going to be given to political parties and candidates contesting elections. So that is point number one. Point number two is state funding or public funding of elections is philosophically is a very good idea. But the question is, how does one implement this? There are two issues in this implementation that I find. One is that how much money should the country budget for elections? If there were to be public funding of elections, how much money should be budgeted? Now, normal system of budgeting is that you find out what we spent in the last year on the last activity, and then we add some cushion and then make budget provision for the next year. Now, for this, we need to know how much money was spent on the last election. Now, this is one figure which nobody knows. The Center for Media Studies made an estimate of 60,000 crores for the 2019 election. But if you read the report, there are good 20, 30 things that they say we have not included in this. And even if you include all that, this is all an estimate which may have no bearing with reality. The only people who know how much money is actually spent are the political parties and the candidates. And they are not going to tell you, because I don't want to go into further details, because in the 2009 Lok Sabha election, we had analyzed the election expenditure affidavits of 6,753 candidates, and 6,719 of them were lying. So no, we will never know how much money political parties and candidates spend on the election. Therefore, whatever money we may provide will end up being throwing good money after bad money. And the second argument in support of what I've just said is that if public money is to be given to candidates and political parties, then it has to be ensured that they will not take money from any other source. Ensuring this is, in my view, impossible. And a very simple example is that if to a public official who is in the habit of taking bribes, you tell that person that I will increase your salary 3 times or 4 times, but you stop taking bribes. Now that isn't going to happen. So public funding of elections is going to be throwing good money after bad money. And I personally am not in favor of it unless political parties come clean on how much money do they get, where do they get it from, how do they get it, and how do they spend it. And to do this, electoral bond scheme has to be stopped, and political parties have to agree to obey the order of the Central Information Commission, which the Central Information Commission gave in 2013, saying 6 national political parties are public authorities under the RTI Act, an act which was passed unanimously by Parliament. And the highest statutory authority in the country to implement that law says political parties are public authorities, but they don't obey that order. So unless political parties are brought to understand that the law of the land applies to them also, I'm afraid the of elections, I would not even want to think about it. As a matter of fact, the most commonly cited report on state funding of elections, so-called, is the Randhir Gupta Committee report. And if you read the first paragraph of their concluding chapter, they very specifically say that state funding of election, which they use the expression at that time, should not even be thought unless several other reforms to the political and electoral process is done, such as stopping the entry of criminals into politics. So let us do that first, and then we can talk about state funding or public funding of elections. I'm sorry, Randhir ji.
Thank you. No,
Long, but
thank you.
yeah,
Good.
thank you.
Very clear. Yeah.
There are questions. One is related to Ashok Sharma is asking. He is discussing about the Rampur model, where Muslims were not allowed to go to polling booths by the police and the media remained silent. And other sort of question like what are the way out of the problems?
See, I
Yes.
have read Ashok Sharma's report. In fact, he went to Rampur after discussing with me. What he has written is absolutely shocking, but not unexpected. Because, as I told earlier, calling India a democracy could be a cruel joke, because it is not. Power mongering, power is the only objective. Capture power at any cost. Criminals capturing power, corrupt corporates capturing power, corrupt individuals capturing power, corrupt ideologies capturing power. Capturing power being the single. So we are resorted to the kind of strategies, the new model in New India, that it used to be booth capturing earlier. Now it is constituency capturing. The entire constituency is being captured through the authority of the state, police, and district authorities performing a leading role in capturing. And this clearly shows the opposition parties and democracy is virtually ineffective. Even the people, see, when there is a rigging of election, the anger of the people must come out. Now, elsewhere in the world, we have seen people who call themselves president being sent to jail by the anger of the party people coming to the streets. That this is not our mandate. You have stolen our mandate. In India, people have become so passive. Fear, fear, fear. Even when their mandate is stolen, it is hijacked, they don't even talk. Opposition parties make some stray statements, and media hardly covers them, and forget about it. See, this Gujarat, there has been issues, recent Gujarat election. After 5 p.m., 16% votes were polled. How was it polled? 16%. I can't understand. Now, I was looking at the numbers of Morbi constituency. Here, 135 people were murdered in cold blood, and the murderers have gone scot-free, and the electorate is rewarded by making them the fellow win by 60,000 votes. I mean, is it really possible if there is electorate of human beings? Are they not have any feelings? Are we in a democratic country? So obviously, people are talking. The election commission is not even taking cognizance. So the only way, see, there's no magic. The freedom, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Similarly, price of democracy is eternal vigilance. If you are not vigilant, people are not vigilant, people are coming down in fear, then, nothing can be done. People can go, and people are already started, as Ashok Sharma has given in his report. One TV channel has already announced that this is the model which is going to be for future elections. So this is again, people has to come. See, you just can't wish away things that institutions like that. Also, election commission also need people's support to take a stand. So at the end of the day, as I said earlier, if the academic circle, the student community becomes meek and weak, they will not defend democracy. People will not defend democracy, leave it only to the political parties. They are riddled with corruption, criminal and all kind of things. I mean, this is what is going to happen. Criminals don't believe in democracy. They will capture power the way they want to capture power. I don't think I can say anything else.
We are joined by Ashok Sharma ji. So Ashok Sharma ji, thank you so much for joining today's session. Now we invite Anjali Bhardwaj ji, and then we'll listen Professor Anand Kumar concluding remark. Ji.
Thank you. That was a very, very rich uh, set of comments, and also, of course, what Mr. Devasahayam talked about. He covered a whole range of issues which are so important. I'm going to just restrict myself to some of the questions in the chat box which ask, what can we all do? What is the way forward? I think what Mr. Devasahayam said, that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, but it is also the price of democracy. And the only way in which we can expect democracy to thrive, we can expect elections to also be free and fair, finally, is if citizens are vigilant. And for that, citizens need information. Unfortunately, right now, what is there in abundance is fake news, and adequate amount of information is not in the public domain. I'm just going to list 2 or 3 things which Mr. Devasahayam has also alluded to, but where we need to be vigilant and therefore we need information. The first is political party funding. Already, Mr. Jagdeep Chhokar mentioned that the CIC has ruled that all political parties should come under the ambit of the right to information law. We must be able to ask political parties where they are getting their money from and where they are using their money. That is one very important thing, which unfortunately political parties are sitting in what we all call uncivil disobedience. They are refusing to comply with the order of the Central Information Commission, and there is no stay from any court on that order. So we need information on what political parties are doing, and especially their funding, electoral bonds. All kinds of funding that comes to political parties should be transparent. Without that, we will not know who the government in power is working for. We can only guess today that there are a set of corporates. Meera ji talked about it. Satyanath ji talked about this issue, this problem of corporate democracy. But we know that the government seems to be functioning for some people, whether it is the farm laws or it is other kinds of laws and policies that are being made. They are obviously being made for only a few, selected few, who are funding the current dispensation, not for the welfare of the people. So unless we all know it is uninformed elections, unless we know where our political parties are getting their funding from. The whole issue of voter lists, and even what Ashok ji talked about, I think this government, in the name of privacy, in the name of data protection, is in fact trying to remove more and more relevant information from the public domain. If we look at the draft of the data protection bill that has come today, which is now in the public domain, unfortunately, the entire set of voter list and all, which we all need to be very vigilant about, we need to monitor that there are no fraudulent voters on those lists. There is everyone who's on that list is allowed to vote. That entire list could be under jeopardy in terms of being public. So these are the kind of things that we need to raise our voice against. And finally, I think the whole issue of the EVM and VVPAT, when we constantly say that what Mr. Devasahayam said, that did our vote get recorded as we voted? Was it counted as we voted? All that is only possible when there is transparency, when each and every vote that is cast is in fact counted, and people can see that this is what the button that I pressed actually translated into the same vote that I cast. My decision was actually recorded properly. So we need information, we need transparency, we need to keep demanding it, because this is a government, unfortunately, at this moment, which is doing everything to keep people in the dark and run its propaganda machinery, use the media, and is flush with funds, because the level playing field is destroyed and the funds are being used to control the media and to feed a narrative. And therefore, we as citizens need information, we need to be empowered, and we need to act. And come together. And I think that the Election Commission of India must be put on notice. We have to say that every single violation that goes to the Election Commission of India, Mr. Devasahayam talked about the various petitions that have been sent even in the Gujarat elections about the violations that took place. We need to know what is the action that the Election Commission is taking. RTI applications were filed by Mr. Devasahayam and others asking what did you do with those petitions, and no response has been forthcoming. I think the Election Commission of India has to be made to function transparently and has to be held accountable if we need to ensure that democracy and the election process are protected in our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anjali Bhardwaj. Very, very insightful. So now I invite Professor Anand Kumar to share his thought and concluding remark of the session.
Thank you, Randhir ji. It is a very important evening discussion by two of the icons of electoral reform movement of the country, Devasahayam and Anjali Bhardwaj. Fortunately, they belong to two different generations. One generation which became the witness of introduction of democracy and its flowering till the dark nights of emergency. Second generation to which our chairperson belongs, and I also belong, has the great memory of return of democracy after emergency experiments. But we are also a passing generation. There is a third generation of Randhir Gautam, which is not very happy to hear these medicines, because these medicines are not available in the market. Political parties are not very committed to the idea of free and fair elections. They only hope that next time they will be winning rather than losing. And that hope makes them compromise with the present system at this generation. And the example was given by our chairperson about RTI. All political parties, left, right, center, up and down, small and big, have one point of agreement. We will not be open to right to information for ordinary citizens. My goodness, you're playing with fire. But you hope that next time the fire will burn the fingers of the other side and we'll be roasting our chicken and having our dinner. I'm very happy, Shri Randhir, that this gathering includes people like Admiral Ram Dass, who campaigned, who burned their fingers for creating an alternative political process and failed and have not given up. They are still sitting and listening. We have Satynath Chaudhary all the way joining us from, I think, Canada or America. We have young students from different campuses, and this all makes a great assembly. I, as a volunteer of electoral reform movement since the days of Jayaprakash, suggest that we continue this discussion. We provide audience to people like Devasahayam ji, Anjali Bhardwaj. Sometimes they get fatigued. They give up. I know Anjali ji is not giving up, but the voice of Devasahayam ji is a bit disturbing. It's not only mechanical problem, Devasahayam ji, you also sound a little dejected because you are looking at wrong people. Neither political parties, not election commission bureaucracy, nor media people have any interest in changing the rules of the game. They will like the game to be played as it is. Actually, one of the election commissioners in the previous years, not during BJP time, another regime, they preferred to become a sports minister. He started playing football. He was chief election commissioner of India. उसके बाद sports minister बन गया. ये तो इनका self confidence का, self esteem का, self respect का level रहा है. आज नहीं कल भी ऐसा. दो चार थे शेषन जैसे, लिंगो जैसे. ज्यादातर तो दूसरे तरीके के. But yes, younger people who are not going to give up their right to vote and their capacity to change the system are going to be listening to you, sir. There'll be great echo effect. I hope that Global Studies, the Gandhian School for Democracy and Socialism will invite another kind of a panel where Anjali ji and Devasahayam ji and Jagdeep Chhokar ji are sitting across the table with some of the political leaders. Because the guilty has to be brought to the. We saw that there is some possibility of change even within this election process. And that gives legitimacy to this foul game. बंगाल में जीत गए तो जीत गए, उत्तर प्रदेश में हार गए तो हार गए, अभी हिमाचल में जीत गए तो जय भारत माता की, जय जनता, गुजरात में हार गए तो गड़बड़ हो गया. This is the mixed situation, and I agree with Anjali ji as the first principle of our campaign, right to the power of information. If you tell me that I'm playing with rope, I'll be playing with a poisonous snake. But if you tell that you're playing with a poisonous snake, I'll not wait for anybody to warn me, alert me, and either run away or kill the snake. This is a very poisonous system. We cannot live without it. We cannot leave it. We have to change the system. But changing the system requires great patience. Some work which has not been attended by even followers of Jayaprakash Narayan in 1977. If it is ignored, it is being ignored by those who manipulated Jayaprakash Narayan's mandate. It is no surprise. I'm very thankful to your initiative, Randhir, that you have not given up. You don't think that this is a dead topic. And I'm more thankful to people like Devasahayam ji, Jagdeep Chhokar ji, Anjali ji, Admiral Ram Das, Satyanath Chaudhary, that they don't give up. This is the secret of our strength. If we keep on shouting, if we keep on talking, if we keep on guarding, yes, we may fail once or twice, but we'll not fail forever. Let us continue this process. Let us find more volunteers for Devasahayam ji. Let us find more people to read it. Let us find translators to this great book which has come out, Electoral Democracy, so that this gap of information, the living, the what you call fiction of democracy, which is being perpetuated for the last couple of years, particularly since 1990s, has to be demystified, and that will be our duty. So we have a long journey. We have to engage in adult education. It is the education of all the people. We start talking about somebody has lost, somebody has won. Actually, both have lost. Both are conspirators against democracy. So we are waiting for 2024, but let us wait with caution. Let us alert all the participants, voters and candidates, that please, this game is being played with a bad set of rules. Please change the rules. I know that they'll not change the rules, but at least some of those who will fail, and many of them will fail, will become a bit more sympathetic to our campaign. I am very thankful on behalf of all of you. When we started at 7:30, there were 20 people. At the peak of the program, there were around 90. Even now, there are around 50 people willing to give their attention and time for this conversation. It's a very positive sign. Thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Professor Anand Kumar sir, for inspiring deliberation. And we really inspired by your work, and also Sadhna Devasahayam ji. And we will cultivate the very idea of democracy to audience, to students, and will nurture the democracy, because democracy is not a state, it is a process, and we'll engage with those inspiration. So thank you so much. And in next
Thank you.
on next Friday, we will have another meditative talk. So we invite for your kind engagement, participation, and discussion. So thank you so much.